The sacred weight of hidden obedience, and why Yahweh builds spiritual authority through repetitive daily faithfulness. Most believers are waiting for a dramatic spiritual breakthrough, while completely overlooking the holy power hidden inside ordinary obedience. They search for prophetic encounters, public manifestations, and emotional highs, while neglecting the repetitive daily habits where Yahweh is actually shaping their character. The kingdom has never primarily been built through spectacle. It has always been built through consistency. Before David confronted Goliath publicly, he first developed hidden discipline privately while tending sheep in isolation. Before Yeshua revealed power openly, he cultivated unwavering obedience through ordinary rhythms of prayer, fasting, silence, and surrender. Yet modern believers often despise the mundane because culture has trained people to associate greatness with visibility instead of faithfulness. The tragedy of this generation is that many want authority without process. They want influence without consecration. They want breakthrough without discipline. They want visible fruit while refusing to cultivate invisible roots. But Yahweh does not build mature vessels through random emotional experiences alone. He builds them through repetitive patterns of hidden obedience that slowly transform the soul over time. Every unnoticed act of discipline becomes spiritual architecture. Every private decision either strengthens or weakens your internal foundation. The problem is that most people underestimate the spiritual consequences of ordinary routines because the effects appear small in the moment. Yet small daily compromises eventually become spiritual weakness, while small daily acts of surrender eventually become authority. This is why your ordinary routine matters far more than you realize. Your habits are not neutral. Your environment is not neutral. Your daily rhythm is constantly shaping your spiritual sensitivity, whether you recognize it or not. The modern world runs on distraction, stimulation, speed, and noise. Endless scrolling trains the mind to become fragmented. Constant entertainment weakens the ability to remain still before Yahweh. Hyperconsumption numbs discernment. Digital overload creates internal static that makes spiritual clarity difficult to sustain. Many believers wonder why they struggle to hear the voice of Yahweh clearly, while simultaneously flooding their minds with constant worldly noise from sunrise to midnight. A distracted life creates a distracted spirit. Consecration begins when a believer intentionally interrupts this cycle and starts reclaiming ordinary moments as sacred territory. The power is not merely in large spiritual gestures. The power is in transforming your entire lifestyle into an altar of surrender. Washing dishes can become worship when done with gratitude instead of resentment. Driving to work can become intercession instead of mental chaos. Cleaning your room can become an act of restoring internal order. Preparing food can become stewardship. Silence can become communion. Breathing can become prayer. The issue is not whether an activity appears spiritual externally. The issue is whether the heart remains aligned with Yahweh internally. Many believers separate life into categories labeled holy and ordinary. But Yahweh desires integration rather than compartmentalization. The kingdom was never designed to exist only during public worship gatherings. True holiness reshapes the entire rhythm of a person's life. A spiritually mature believer carries alignment into conversations, habits, reactions, relationships, finances, sleep patterns, eating habits, work ethic, and private thought patterns. This is why hidden habits eventually reveal true spiritual condition. A person can perform publicly for short periods of time, but daily routine always exposes authentic priorities. Modern culture rewards dramatic moments while ignoring sustainable rhythms. People celebrate overnight transformations while overlooking years of quiet discipline that created them. Yet spiritual authority is rarely built instantly. It is accumulated gradually through consistent surrender. One honest prayer may seem insignificant. One morning of discipline may seem small. One decision to resist distraction may feel invisible. But repeated over months and years, those micro-decisions shape the nervous system, strengthen discernment, deepen endurance, and establish internal stability. The soul becomes conditioned either toward chaos or toward peace, depending on what it repeatedly practices. This is why hidden obedience carries enormous spiritual power. Repetition forms identity. Whatever you repeatedly tolerate eventually becomes normalized. Whatever you repeatedly practice eventually becomes natural. If your routine constantly feeds anxiety, comparison, lust, distraction, bitterness, and overstimulation, those patterns slowly shape your spiritual atmosphere. But if your routine consistently feeds gratitude, silence, discipline, truth, prayer, wisdom, patience, and stewardship, those rhythms gradually cultivate peace and authority. Your future spiritual condition is already being constructed through your present habits. The enemy understands this principle very well, which is why distraction has become one of the primary weapons against modern believers. Constant stimulation prevents self-awareness. Noise prevents reflection. Busyness prevents surrender. Endless entertainment prevents conviction. Many believers are not spiritually weak because they lack information. They are spiritually weak because their inner world has become overcrowded. The mind cannot sustain deep spiritual sensitivity while drowning in perpetual distraction. Yahweh often speaks most clearly in stillness, but stillness has become uncomfortable for people addicted to stimulation. This is why silence feels threatening to many individuals today. When external noise disappears, unresolved internal realities become audible. Anxiety surfaces. Grief surfaces. Exhaustion surfaces. Fear surfaces. Insecurity surfaces. Many people instinctively return to distraction because distraction feels easier than confrontation. Yet the hidden discomfort people avoid is often the exact place where Yahweh wants to begin healing. Consecration requires the courage to remain present long enough for truth to emerge without immediately escaping into noise. The believer who develops hidden discipline gains something far greater than temporary emotional excitement. They gain stability. Emotional highs fluctuate. Public affirmation fluctuates. Circumstances fluctuate. But deeply rooted habits create endurance that survives difficult seasons. This is why Yeshua could remain steady under enormous pressure. His private life was already aligned before public suffering arrived. Hidden consistency produced visible authority. Many people assume spiritual maturity is measured by knowledge alone, but information without integration creates deception. A believer can consume sermons daily while remaining emotionally immature, reactive, distracted, and spiritually unstable. Transformation occurs when truth moves beyond intellectual agreement and becomes embodied through routine practice. Real growth is behavioral. Real surrender changes lifestyle. Real alignment reshapes priorities. The kingdom is not merely something you believe occasionally. It becomes something you inhabit continuously. This is where many believers experience hidden internal conflict. They desire spiritual authority while maintaining lifestyles that constantly fracture their focus and weaken their discernment. They want peace while feeding anxiety. They want clarity while drowning in distraction. They want intimacy with Yahweh while giving Him only fragmented leftovers of their attention. Consecration requires honest auditing. Certain habits must be confronted. Certain environments must be reevaluated. Certain influences must be removed. Not because Yahweh is controlling, but because alignment requires intentional stewardship. Every environment carries a spiritual atmosphere. Every repeated habit reinforces a specific internal condition. Your room affects your mind. Your media affects your emotions. Your conversations affect your discernment. Your sleep affects your stability. Your schedule affects your peace. Your physical body affects your mental clarity. The believer who ignores stewardship eventually experiences internal fragmentation. But the believer who intentionally cultivates healthy rhythms creates space for deeper spiritual sensitivity. This is why discipline should never be viewed as punishment. Discipline is protection. Discipline preserves clarity. Discipline creates margin for peace. The modern world glorifies indulgence, impulsivity, and overstimulation while quietly producing burnout, confusion, anxiety, and emotional instability. Yahweh's rhythms often appear slower and less exciting externally, but they produce far greater long-term strength internally. Consecration protects the soul from fragmentation. The hidden beauty of ordinary obedience is that it gradually transforms the believer into someone capable of carrying greater spiritual weight responsibly. Yahweh rarely pours massive authority into undisciplined vessels because character must sustain what gifting attracts. Public influence without private stability creates collapse. This is why hidden seasons matter so deeply. The secret place forms the foundation strong enough to withstand visibility later. Many believers pray for purpose while resisting the ordinary routines required to sustain that purpose. Yet your calling is not separate from your daily habits. Your assignment is being shaped inside your current stewardship. The way you manage ordinary responsibilities often reveals how you would manage larger responsibilities later. If a person cannot steward quiet obedience privately, they will likely misuse authority publicly. The kingdom prioritizes integrity before visibility. Consecration also transforms how believers view time itself. Instead of rushing through life searching for the next breakthrough, they begin recognizing the holiness hidden inside the present moment. Every interaction becomes meaningful. Every decision becomes intentional. Every habit becomes formative. This awareness slows the soul down enough to become present again. Many people are physically alive but psychologically absent because they are constantly chasing future outcomes while neglecting current reality. Consecration restores presence. This shift changes relationships as well. People who cultivate hidden peace stop depending on external chaos for stimulation. They become less reactive, less defensive, and less controlled by emotional volatility. Their nervous system stabilizes, their reactions soften, their discernment sharpens. They begin responding intentionally rather than impulsively. This stability becomes visible to others because true peace cannot remain hidden forever. Internal order eventually produces external fruit. One of the greatest deceptions of modern spirituality is the belief that dramatic moments matter more than daily faithfulness. Yet most transformation occurs quietly beneath the surface, long before visible fruit appears. Seeds develop underground before anyone sees growth externally. Hidden roots always precede visible harvest. The believer who remains faithful in ordinary routines is building invisible depth that will eventually sustain visible impact. This is why you must stop despising repetition. Repetition is how identity is formed. The small daily choices you make today are quietly constructing the person you will become tomorrow. Every time you choose peace over chaos, presence over distraction, truth over performance, discipline over indulgence, surrender over pride, and stillness over noise, you strengthen spiritual pathways that eventually become natural. Transformation is cumulative. The enemy wants believers to remain trapped in inconsistency because inconsistency weakens authority. A fragmented lifestyle produces fragmented focus. But steady obedience creates internal alignment. This alignment becomes spiritual confidence because the believer is no longer divided internally. Their public life matches their private life. Their words match their habits. Their worship matches their character. This integrity carries spiritual weight. Many believers search endlessly for hidden spiritual secrets while overlooking the obvious disciplines already available to them. Sleep with peace. Wake with gratitude. Protect your attention. Guard your atmosphere. Remove unnecessary noise. Speak truth consistently. Practice silence. Steward your body wisely. Create rhythms of prayer. Maintain honest repentance. Serve quietly. Forgive quickly. Remain teachable. Stay present. These practices may appear ordinary externally, but repeated faithfully, they cultivate extraordinary spiritual endurance internally. The modern world constantly pressures people towards speed, comparison, and performance. But Yahweh often works through slowness, hiddenness, and consistency. Trees grow slowly. Foundations are built slowly. Character develops slowly. Deep roots require time. The believer who accepts this no longer becomes obsessed with instant results. They trust that hidden faithfulness is never wasted, even when external evidence seems delayed. Consecration ultimately means allowing Yahweh access to every ordinary part of your existence, instead of reserving spirituality only for emotional moments. It means your habits become aligned with your prayers. Your schedule becomes aligned with your values. Your environment becomes aligned with your peace. Your routines become aligned with your calling. This integration removes internal contradiction and creates wholeness. The greatest spiritual breakthroughs often begin long before dramatic manifestations appear. They begin the moment a believer decides that ordinary obedience matters. They begin when someone chooses stillness over distraction. They begin when someone treats hidden discipline as sacred instead of insignificant. They begin when someone stops waiting for public moments and starts honoring Yahweh privately inside daily routine. Beloved, your breakthrough may not begin with a microphone, a platform, or a dramatic sign from heaven. It may begin with the hidden decision to reclaim your ordinary life as holy ground. It may begin with protecting your attention. It may begin with silence. It may begin with discipline. It may begin with surrender inside the routines you once considered insignificant. Because the deepest spiritual authority is rarely built through spectacle. It is built through the sacred weight of hidden obedience practiced consistently when nobody else is watching.